Good morning. Thank you everyone for joining me this morning. It's just ticked over to 9:30, so I'm going to get started. My name is Amanda Nardi-Wallace. I am the Assistant Director for Strategic Projects and Crises here at NOPSEMA. And I'd just like to start by saying Kaya Wanju, and I'm speaking to you today from Buraloo country on Noongar Budja. And I'd like to, sorry, I have a microphone on. Could I please have that muted? Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the Wadjuk people who are the custodians of the land that I present on today, and I acknowledge their elders past and present. And I also like to extend that welcome and acknowledgement to any First Nations people who are on the call this morning with me, and also to recognise the elders past and present of the lands that you're meeting with me today on. This is a recorded session. It will be available post this meeting online for people to watch and for anyone who was unable to attend. So I please ask that you keep your microphones muted until we get to the questions times at the end. And I would like to ask as well that if you can either raise your hands at the end for the questions or pop them into the chat, we'll try to get to them towards the end of the meeting. Please feel free to use the chat throughout the meeting and add any comments that you like along the way. So today's session is the first of a series of information sessions that we are going to be providing to you as NOPSEMA, and they're all around the new Resource Management Administration regulations. So today's session is predominantly going to be about the legislation changes themselves. We're not going into the core detail and some of the operational level detail that some of you might be wanting out of these sessions. That's we have targeted for the February 10th session. We will go into greater detail on the Part 5 changes and how NOPSEMA is doing that regulation. And I'd like to acknowledge that these regulations have both ourselves as NOPSEMA and NOPTA as the regulators, and so there will be things in here that are only relevant to us as NOPSEMA, and anything relating to NOPTA can be directed to them as well. If you have registered online, your details will be in the system and you will be sent the invites to the next two sessions. If there is anybody that wants to additionally register, they can at any time. We will add you to the list, and you are also able to forward on that invite to those within your organisation that the different sessions may be relevant to. So for a general background, why the regulations needed to be remade. Most regulations within Australia and legislative instruments in Australia have a sunsetting clause. So generally after 10 years, there's an automatic sunsetting where they will be repealed unless some action is taken on them. With these particular ones, they were originally due for sunsetting in 2021, and that was extended, and they now have a hard fast sunsetting on the 1st of April 2026. So in order for us to have continuous regulation, there needed to be a remake of the regulations so that we have something ready to go by the 31st of March, so that we have no lack in legislation through that. Our policy agency, DISA, are the agency that is responsible for this particular suite of legislation. And as part of that process, they undertook the review and they liaised heavily with ourselves at NOPSEMA and NOPTA on reviewing the regulations. There was also a public consultation period that was open in 2025 that allowed external people to comment on the proposed changes to the legislation. So essentially, it is part of normal governance process to have legislations be remade and made more consistent and appropriate for the environment that we're working in. Some of the things that were also included with this remake were really about having better consistency across the language that's used in our suite of legislation so that there is less confusion between aspects underneath the same series of regulations. So from DISA, one of the biggest parts that was looked at for the remake is really about trying to improve the clarity and modernise the regulations that we had. So a lot of the things that have been changed is really around making it clearer whose roles and responsibilities they are, putting more explicitly things that are required, but in most cases it's actually aligning to what best practice is already out there. So as I mentioned at the start, there is aspects that are relevant to NOPTA, and they have a series of documents and information on their website, which is open for consultation at the moment. And then there is the additional area, which is specifically relevant to us at NOPSEMA and the changes that are happening to there, which is what we will focus on in our sessions. So specifically for NOPSEMA, it's really about changes in Part 5. Most of the changes that are relevant are contained within that section. There is now explicit stating that it is for petroleum greenhouse gas wells, that it explicitly states that WOMPs are now to be enforced for the entirety life of the well, and that includes when they are in suspended mode as well. There's also been a broadened definition of well and their well-related equipment. There are a number of improved or modernised requirements under the WOMP. Again, a lot of these are things that we see as best practice and are now just being more explicitly mentioned. There's also new reporting and information gathering options into there as well for us to basically improve how we do regulation. So specifically around WOMPs, under the remake, the well integrity obligations are now much stronger and much more comprehensive. So they explicitly include the periods now when the wells are suspended or otherwise not operational, but not permanently abandoned. And this is really to have that recognition of the risks that are involved for the full life cycle of the wells that we regulate and manage. In the new WOMPs, the key areas here is this introduction of to an acceptable level. So we've always worked under the ALARP principle, and now acceptable level is an additional area that needs to be addressed and demonstrated. This, again, is something that for best practice is being done, but it's now more explicitly being stated into the requirements. Additionally, the kinds of monitoring processes and control measures that are being implemented as well are similar, and that they're being well documented within the WOMPs. So you'll need to be expecting to document the concept of the well, why that concept is deemed the safest for the context that you're operating within, the design, construction, and the operation of the wells, and what situations you have for competency assurances within there. So in terms of going into greater detail on what the acceptance criteria will be and what we are actually be looking for under the WOMPs, we will be covering that in greater detail in further information sessions that we'll be holding with you. You can as well at any time contact your focal points within NOPSEMA if you have something that you specifically want to talk about, and we are engaging separate to these sessions with industry on these specific criteria of what's to be expected under the new regulations. One key thing that has changed in WOMP revisions is that we now explicitly state that a revised WOMP will be required as soon as reasonably practical after receiving a direction from NOPSEMA that conflicts with the WOMP. So it was always a requirement within the regulations that a new WOMP revision would be required if there was a direction issue that conflicts with the WOMP. However, now it is a time-bound aspect into there with as soon as practical after receiving that direction. So the other area of key change and some things that are going to be new coming in is the notifications and the reporting that's coming in under these new regulations. So the definition of reportable incidents now has been expanded and includes the damage to or failure of well equipment used to monitor and verify the integrity of the well. They will need to be reported to NOPSEMA as soon as practical after you become aware of the incidents. And in addition, there will need to be the reportable incident at the time, and that you must provide further written reports to NOPSEMA for each 30-day period until that incident has been resolved. So this is just really clarifying some of the arrangements for current reporting and making sure that there is closeout of these incidents in the reporting. The main change, that'll be a new reporting requirement, and will commence from the start of 31st of March, is the new introduction of the annual report. This will be submitted 14 days after the anniversary date of when NOPSEMA has accepted the WOMP under either the old or the new regulations. I'll touch on that a little bit more in this next slide. So The annual well integrity report is retro-reflective, so it's looking at the operational status of the well that's during that past year. What exactly will be into the annual well integrity report is what we are working on at the moment. We are intending to produce a form to make this a simple and consistent process across the board. The summary of well integrity tests that are conducted for the well should be included, summary of well maintenance activities, any performance standards that were not met during that period of time, and generally the kind of the operational side of things that is really letting us know here at NOPSEMA what has been happening within that well for that past year. When this is going to apply will be from that 14 days after the anniversary date of when NOPSEMA has accepted a WOMP. So if you have a WOMP that has been accepted at any time already, 14 days after that, after the 31st of March, that is when you're going to need to start submitting these new annual well integrity reports. So NOPSEMA will be putting out for consultation what we are putting forward as the report, what our template will be for that, and we will make sure that any stakeholders that are looking to be submitting these reports in the early months are well consulted on throughout this process. So the biggest one that everyone generally asks about when we have new legislation coming in is what the transitional arrangements are going to be. This can be quite confusing. We've tried to simplify this out and make it as clear as possible for you. So if you have a revision of a WOMP that was accepted under the old regulations that you have already submitted or is being submitted before the 31st of March, it will continue to be assessed under the old regulations. If you have a revision of an accepted WOMP that you submit after the 31st of March, that will need to be assessed under the new regulations. If you have a new WOMP that is submitted either before or after the 31st of March, if the assessment is not completed before the 31st of March, it will need to be assessed under the new regulations. So there's really two different things here, and I'll leave this slide up for a moment for you to take in. If it is a revision and you already have an accepted WOMP, if it is in for submission before the 31st of March, it will continue under the old regulations. After the 31st of March, it will come under the new regulations. If it is a new WOMP, then if we cannot complete the assessment before the 31st of March, then it would need to be assessed under the remade regulations. Any WOMPs that you have that are accepted under the old regulations do continue to be in force, and there are transitional rules that are covering how the revisions of the notices and the annual reports will be undertaken as well. So essentially, if you've already got an accepted WOMP, you do not need to submit a new one because of the changes to the regulations. If your WOMP is currently in for assessment and it is likely to be completed for and accepted by NOPSEMA before the 31st of March, then that will continue to be assessed under the old regulations. However, the closer we get to the 31st of March, any new WOMPs that are submitted into there are likely to need to be looked at under the new regulations. If you have specific questions around your WOMP, anything you have in at the moment, I do encourage you to reach out to your focal point and have a discussion with them on the status of where your WOMP is at or anything new that you're looking to submit to cover what arrangements you're likely to be assessed under. So what are we doing as NOPSEMA and how can you continue to stay informed? We are in the process at the moment of updating all of our guidance material. We are engaging with various stakeholders, including DISC, to talk around our guidance materials and look at what changes need to happen, where we need to provide clarity. We are engaging with stakeholders regularly in this area, both our inspectors with their focal points, and again, as I mentioned, with larger groups. And we're also about to publish a series of FAQs on our website, which will answer some of the early questions, and we will continue to update those as we move along. Any questions that we take today in this session and that we can't answer online, we will take on notice to bring back to you when we have our next session. Or if they're a general question that we can provide in an FAQ, we will pop that up onto our website as well. I do strongly recommend that you keep engaged with our dedicated page for the RMA regulations, and I've included the link to that in this presentation. Anything that we have new will come up onto there. When we have our guidance material out for consultation, we'll have alerts in that space as well to let you know that the consultation period is open and how you can get involved. Obviously, with the really short time frame, 31st of March comes around very quickly. We are open to continuous feedback within this space. So if you aren't able to provide us feedback within this time period and we have our new guidance material comes out, we will continue to engage with our stakeholders into the new year and address anything that is unclear or needs further clarification as we continue under the new regulations. Additionally, if you have questions that are directly related to NOPTA, they currently have a consultation period open on new and revised guidelines, their fact sheets and their forms. And I strongly encourage you to go to their website, engage with this area and reach out to them directly if you have questions related to that part of the RMA regulations. When we come together for the February 10 guidance on Part 5 changes, I will have with me a number of the experts within our well integrity teams, some of those that you're quite familiar with, and we'll be able to go into a bit more detail on what is actually required under the new WOMPs, what is the expected well integrity report going to look like, and we'll give you some greater clarifications on the progress in this area. When we come back for the 5th of February, we will look to address anything that hasn't been covered so far in the updates that we can give you to date, and we'll address any FAQs. So today's session is a short session. It is really just to give you the overarching information about the remake of the regulations and the primary things that have changed in relation to us. I am about to open it up to questions, and I have a number of my colleagues here at NOPSEMA on the line as well who may be able to answer some of your questions here today. Alternatively, we will take note of those and we will add them to the questions as I mentioned. So thank you very much for listening to that brief overview of the regulations and what's coming for us. And I'll now stop sharing the presentation and open up to some questions. Okay, so I see I have a question online here that will be updating the guidance material. And does this include all current material or only that pertaining to those impact of the RMA regulations? All of our guidance material does routinely get updated. Anything that is impacted by the RMA regulations will be updated, but the rest of our, if it's not affected by this, it's not in this current trench to be updated. Is there a particular guidance material that you're questioning in that one? No. Excellent, thank you. Now, do I have any questions from anybody online? Okay, I have, will there a question in the chat, will there be a mechanism for NOPSEMA to approve well concepts prior to the full WOMP being submitted to NOPSEMA? I'll pass this over to my NOPSEMA colleagues in the room if they can answer that one.
That's reassessing the regulations. That's a question that has been asked by DISC as well. So we'll reevaluate how the acceptance criteria are developed for that. At the moment, we don't see that as being an issue, but we look forward to discussing that in more detail.
Excellent, thank you, Miles. Do I have any further questions online? I don't seem to have any hands up or any further entered into the chat. Okay, I'll throw to my colleagues of NOPSEMA. Is there any additional comments you want to just add to the group who's online here today?
The only thing The only thing I'd like to add is that we've had very good feedback from the Drilling Industry Steering Committee. Thank you very much for that. But we look forward to any feedback from other members of the community as well. It will be very useful in preparing our acceptance criteria.
Excellent. Thank you, Miles. So without any further questions on this today, we'll keep this. Oh, yes, sorry. I have a question here.
Miles, regarding that feedback, sorry, Miles, regarding that feedback from the DISC, are we going to be able to get a session to sit down with you to go through all that? Because there's quite a lot on there. And to just answer that through emails or whatever, I think it'd be better to meet with the group and clarify this a bit further. Is that going to be possible?
Yes, we agree that would be most useful. Emails are a great way of communication, but face-to-face we can clarify things a lot quicker. So we definitely propose that meetings in the future.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I will just reconfirm as well. So the things that we're working on the offline with our meetings with our stakeholders, we will be bringing any resolutions and answers to questions back to our information sessions. So you won't miss out if you're not within the room for various discussions that are occurring with stakeholders. Okay, will the next session address concept select specifically? I won't give a guarantee on that yet. We will see where we get to with the conversations that we're having with our stakeholders and what information we can bring back to you. If we have a definitive answer at that time, we will bring that back to the Part 5 session on the 10th of February. Alternatively, if we can't have it by then, we'll look to have it to you for the 25th of February session and give you some more detail into that. Please also keep an eye on the FAQs. If it's something that we're able to produce and put out with our FAQs, we will put the updates in there as well. Okay, I'll give it another moment just for any final questions to come through. I will say thank you very much to everyone coming on today. I kept it quite short to give you back as much of your time as possible, since we're really just giving you the legislation overview today. We will be working hard to get information out as fast as we can and providing that opportunities for consultation with our documents as they come out and to get the FAQs up to you as well. Okay, I have a hand up from Jeanette Gordon.
Morning all. I was just would like to check that you'll put the slide pack with that summary of the legislation changes up on the website so that we can share it internally as well.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So the slide pack and the recording of this session will go up so people can see anything that we've captured in the slides and as well what we've discussed in session for anyone who can't make it to these meetings. And we'll do that with all of the sessions that we hold, so it's available to those who can't attend.
Thank you. Sorry.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much. I will close the meeting there today. Oh, hang on. Sorry, one more. From the information available online, I note that the sunsetting RMA regulations were scheduled in April 2020. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Any reason this has taken so long? Not a specific reasons in there. There were a series of extensions sought for it, and while things have been worked through, and this is where it has ended up. It is not unusual for extensions to be granted for extending regulations. It's just really a matter of business of going through all the legislation that's out there and getting the changes in place. However, what has been good with the extended time period is it has allowed further considerations between the policy agency DISA and our regulators to discuss the changes so that we could really try and make the best practice for regulations that are out there. And yeah, as you will see when you go through a lot of the regulations and where the nitty-gritty of the changes are, most of it has really been around clarification of roles and responsibility and greater sharing of information, which in most cases is what industry has already been doing. It's just now explicitly stating these things and giving us a little bit more clarity on what is expected, both for us as the regulators and for you as title holders. Okay. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us at NOPSEMA, to your focal points, pose your questions towards us. If you're members with the disc group, you can also send your questions via them as well to feed back into us as here. We will aim to get as much information out to you as soon as possible. And I do thank you all for your participation today and coming online. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.